Hey everyone, it's Brandon from Top 10 Gamer, and I'm pretty excited because I'm going to be adding some new things to the channel that I think everyone's going to really like. First of all, obviously we've got an upgrade as far as the camera's concerned. I'm going to be adding new mics, so we're going to be bringing better quality to you. But in addition, we're going to be adding something today that I think is a good idea. I don't know, you guys can let me know in the comment section below. It's a segment of the channel called For the Money, where a couple times a week, maybe once or twice a week, depending on what you guys really want, this segment will be me basically going out doing the research to look at what I would buy at a certain period of time. Today, what we're going to talk about are graphics card and CPU combos. That is, what from $200 to $500, what at each price range would I get? Let's say at $200, what would be the exact CPU and graphics card combination that I would go with and why? So it's important to realize when I make these videos that over the course of time this is going to change. So luckily, you know, I have a website and we can continue to do this to update it because, you know, at any specific day or point in time, because of market fluctuation and because of things like Bitcoin miners who go out and buy all of the you know, the R7 265s that are on the market that are at the standard prices, you know, things like that make the market pretty crazy right now. So, especially with graphics cards. But I'll continually update this on the website. It's not going to be like an everyday kind of thing, but going to the website will allow you to really see all of my recommendations. I've been getting a lot of like pretty standard questions that I feel like I've done a pretty good job of answering in my videos, but I know I don't have like one solid place that I can go for all that you guys can go for like all of that information. Now I'm happy to answer your questions at facebook.com/top10gamer as long as I possibly can. But as the channel continues to grow, if I wake up at 20 questions in the morning on Facebook, I could spend my entire morning doing research and answering these questions. So I've been thinking that the best thing to do then is to just put everything that I think up on the website so you guys have a resource where you can go and interact and vote on what you think as well. Okay, so first things first, in the $200 category, what would you do? There's a few choices here. Now, if you're spending $200 on your CPU and processor, I can imagine that the overall cost of your build is not any more than like $400. So a pretty good portion to your CPU and processor. And you know, in the past, I always had a standard rule. Hey, you know, spend at least 25% of your money on the graphics card, 25% on the processor to give you max performance. I think at a price range like this, and really due to all the circumstances as of late, the best thing to do is just to go through a couple different scenarios with you. You could buy a better CPU here and go with something like the FX 6300 or the i3-4120. That's the Haswell version. And it has hyper-threading as well. The FX 6300 has your 6 cores. So you could go with something slightly stronger in terms of a CPU like that, or maybe something a little bit less in like the Athlon 760K. So if you go with the Athlon 760K, I'd recommend that you combo that with an R7 260X or a GTX 750, one or the other. Now, the R7 260X hasn't been readily available at a decent price. I did find them today, so if you get out there fast enough, you should be able to find it. But R7 268, R7 268, blah, 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 you know. It's crazy to say all these numbers all the time. Just forget about all that. But the R7 260X is one of the best graphics cards for the money, especially if you can get it for like 120 bucks. So what's that going to do? It's going to allow you to play games like Battlefield 4. I know on like high settings you can get around 40 FPS. You guys can go to the site for information on where you can find my sources for all of this information I'm giving you. It's going to be about 40 FPS in high settings. So in medium settings you should be doing, you know, around 60 FPS. Just think about that. For 200 bucks, we can get a CPU graphics card combo that will allow you to play Battlefield at a level that's at least as good as the Xbox One and the PS4. Your other option here is to go with the GTX 750, which is a good overclocker, and they haven't shown that as much. You've probably not seen as much advertising for the GTX 750. If you overclock it, you can get GTX 750 Ti stock-like performance. Okay, so if you decide to go with a better processor, I completely understand. It's going to be better. You're going to lose some FPS right now, but in the long run, you might be better off. I mean, think about what the Athlon 760K really is. You're getting an FM2 motherboard that in the future won't have that many great upgrades in terms of CPUs. So I don't know, for me, I'd probably, anytime I can, I'll tend in favor of going for the better CPUs. So if you do that and you go for the i3-4130 or the FX 6300, then you're going to want to go with the HD7770 or the R7 250X, which is basically just a rebranded HD7770. Your other choice here is to go with the A10 7850K. That's an APU from AMD, and really doesn't make any sense at all. And if you want to check that out, again, check the sources in the description below or on the website for various articles where you can see what kind of FPS that's going to net you. But you know, even if the 7850K was available and you could use it in SLI with the R7 240 or 250, you still wouldn't even come close to the performance you'd get with that Athlon 760K and the R7 260X. So you can see that AMD has a little bit of a problem here. Now, obviously there are other intangibles that are going to be coming for these APUs, but for right now, it just doesn't really make any sense. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at graphics card combos, graphics card CPU combos under $300. And if you're going for max FPS, then you're probably going to go again with the Athlon 760K here and the R9 270. Again, that's just max FPS. But keep in mind that for $300, that opens a lot of solutions in terms of processors for us. We can go with the FX 6300, the same i3-4120. We could jump all the way up to the i5 4670K and then just go with, like, you know, a pretty cheap, inexpensive $90 to $100 graphics card. You could go with something like the FX 8320, around $150, and then get a $150 graphics card. So really up to you what you think you need. Again, I think in terms of max FPS, you're going to want that Athlon 760K. But if it's me, I don't do any worse than the FX 6300 here, and I might even push towards going for the FX 8320. Now, if you go with the FX 8320, the choice that comes to my mind and the one that I've researched and think would be the best would be the GTX 750 Ti. And there's a few reasons for this. You're going to get G-Sync. Also, the 750 Ti is an amazing overclocker, so be sure to get one of the options that you can overclock. And then you get pretty solid performance in that $300 price range, and you get a CPU that will last for several years to come. Now, another really good option here, if you really are using this computer a lot for gaming and you want a little bit more FPS, so you don't want to spend quite that much on your processor, would be the FX 6300, the R7 265, or even the GTX 660 if you want to stretch for that. GTX 660 here is probably going to cost you about $190, $200. And the FX 6300 is probably going to cost you $110. So you might be slightly over on that option. If you can get an R7 265, that's a better performing CPU in terms of Battlefield 4, but I'd put it underneath the GTX 660 substantially in pretty much every other title. There might be an exception to that, so don't like take it for exactly what I'm saying there. But I would just stretch for that, and in terms of a good overall balance between CPU and graphics card, that would be a pretty good option. Okay, so under $400, you could do a lot of different things here, but if you want to go for max FPS and not gimp yourself on the CPU, you're going to go with the FX 8320, at least here, and something like the GTX 760. Now, the GTX 750 is going to cost you between $250 and $60. And the 8320, that'll be about $150. So there's your $400, and you should get pretty stellar games, stellar performance in games across the board. Specifically in a game like Battlefield 4, you'll get over 60 FPS on high settings. Okay, so the other option that I really like in this price range, because I think you can overclock the FX 8320 to be like a lot like the 8350. Sure, you can overclock the 8350, but the other option, I think in that price range, I would personally go with, and you guys can argue with me on this if you want to, is the i5 4670K. I feel like that's a better option in terms of higher end graphics cards to come. So if you were to upgrade down the line, I think you'd be happy that you had the i5 4670K. Not only that, it's very energy efficient, it's a great overclocker, and it runs very cool. So i5 4670K along with something like the GTX 660 or R7 265 would be my choice here. Okay, last but not least, we have the $500 category. So for here, I really just have one choice because just looking at the current market, it's the one that makes sense. The i5 4670K and the GTX 770. Now, you might say in your mind, hey, what about the R9 280X? The R9 280X hasn't really been a reasonable price as of late. So I don't really see that being a good argument. If it comes down in price, let's say it's like more like 300 bucks for the R9 280X. For me, then that card becomes a very viable option. But if you want G-Sync, you want a fantastic processor in the i5 4670K, then you'll go with this combo. Okay, so what kind of performance can you expect to get? Again, on the website I've got sources for all these and you guys can find benchmarks to your heart's content. But just some basic ones, you're going to get over 54 FPS average on ultra settings in Battlefield 4 and over 80 in high. And then you'll get great performance across every other game. Now remember, Battlefield 4 is an AMD optimized title. GTX 770 still does a great job in it, and it does an even better job in everything else. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, like and subscribe. If not, you can dislike, that's fine too. You can troll me, whatever you want to do, that's just fine. That's all good. It just makes me stronger, makes me want to get better. So anyway, subscribe again and we'll see you next time.